Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, April 7th. If you were just tuning in, we have a lot to get into. We have, of course, to go over March Madness. The Final Four took place this weekend in what was a very busy weekend of sports that saw records being broken, all-time records. We saw incredible comebacks. We saw a champion crowned, and of course, we saw massive contracts, as well as a championship game set up for tonight in just about 50 minutes. But we're going to get all of that in a second. Before we do, though, remember, if you want to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, April 7th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into a little bit here on the Final Four, and it was an incredible Final Four. After a kind of disappointing March Madness, some might say, not many Cinderella stories, all one seeds in the Final Four, we got what was promised. Two incredible games. Let's look at some of the numbers that got us here. First of all 4 one seeds. Of course, we went over this before in our last show on Friday. This is just the second time that that's ever happened. The last time also gave us a very good Final Four in San Antonio in 2008. This could go down as one of the best Final Fours ever, assuming the final tonight does not disappoint either. These 4 one seeds are 4 of the highest efficiency teams we have ever seen in the tournament. 4 of the 6 highest teams by efficiency numbers we have ever seen in the tournament, all time. Top 6, all 4 of these teams are. So this, as we've been saying, more and more metrics continue to pour in, that this is a Final Four, a group of teams that was the best Final Four we have ever seen. And the games lived up to the hype. We're going to start off with the early one that saw Florida take care of business versus Auburn. Auburn and Florida, of course, had faced earlier in the year, both in the SEC, the first time SEC opponents had faced each other in the Final Four ever. Bruce Pearl and the Auburn Tigers came out with a passion. They came out there early, ready to make a difference. On the other side, the Florida Gators came out flat. They came out a little slow, and at the end of the first half, when all was said and done, the Florida Gators, they were down by 8 points. And that kind of started a theme, comebacks here, right? Because in the second half, Florida Gators came out and they turned it on. The Florida Gators came out there and started shooting. Their defense really stepped up there. They were able to shut down the shooting on the other end from Auburn, and what seemingly like a wide open bucket just went away. Of course, the star of the show was Walter Clayton Jr. Walter Clayton Jr. went for 34 points in this one. He is the first player since Larry Bird to score 30-plus points in the Elite Eight and the Final Four in the same tournament run. That is an incredible stat. He has been lights out. And if there's one thing to say about this Florida Gators team, it is the fact that this Florida Gators team has been clutch. Clutch is their middle name. They show up when they need to, whether that be Walter Clayton Jr. hitting massive shots against UConn, or whether that be the other players on this team. All of these Florida Gators, really, it's been Clayton Jr. showing up really in the clutch there, but a whole bunch of them, whether that be, again, against UConn, pulling it out there at the end, against Texas Tech, going on that big run with about 3 minutes left in the game to secure a spot in the Final Four, against Auburn, coming back from 8 down, at a point in the second half where Auburn had an 85% chance to win this game. You see that graph flip upside down in favor of the Gators. They take a lead, they never look back. And that's one thing about this Gators team that's really cool to see. They are deep, they are clutch, and when they get hot, they get hot. The concerning part about this Gators team is that this is not the first time that their offense has started slow. They need their offense to get going faster if they want to win tonight, but we'll get more into that later. We have to talk a little bit about that Duke-Houston game because that was one of the best games of college basketball we have seen in a very, very long time. Duke came out of the gates here, and they were dominating for most of it, right? At the beginning, nobody could buy a bucket. Duke ends up opening a little bit of a lead behind some of their guys. Con Knipple really stepped up huge in that first half, hitting a couple big threes. Maluwak down low also played a huge part, his ability to get offensive rebounds. Cooper Flagg had a huge game, not just on the offensive side of the ball, but defensively, especially really all the way up until about the 10-minute mark. In that second half, Duke was dominating this game. Now, the scoreboard didn't necessarily reflect that, but Duke went up as much as 14 points in this game. Duke did. That is the largest lead ever surrendered in a Final Four game. That means the biggest comeback ever belongs to the Houston Cougars, 14 points. They end up winning this game by 3 points, but it was because of their defense. They step up, and that's really been the strength of this Cougars team. This has been the strength of this Houston team under Kelvin Sampson this entire run. Now, they've been to the Final Four before. In fact, they've been to the Final Four 7 times now and never won a championship. That is the most out of any program in the NCAA's history. They are the most successful non-championship basketball team in the history of college basketball. This is a very storied program. Of course, you've got Clyde Drexler and Hakeem Olajuwon as some alumni there. They didn't get a championship. You've had a lot of really solid Houston teams over the years, but this Houston team is a little bit different. What they're able to do on the defensive side of the ball, as always, amazing. Their defense continues to be the shining part of their game, the best defense by KenPom in the nation right now, and that's what's powering them. But they also have shooters, and that's something that they haven't really had in a lot of Kelvin Sampson's runs. It's something that's really cool to see because they're able to go out there and hold Duke to 1 field goal in the last 10 minutes and 30 seconds. But what I really want to focus on, besides their defense, is the whole sequence that got down the stretch of the game. Of course, one of the big calls in that moment was the Cooper Flagg over the back call on a missed free throw, a 1-and-1, when they were trying to close out the game. And that was one of the big things for Duke. Duke hadn't really been in a close game all season long. They had been the most dominant team in college basketball when you look at plus-minus numbers. They've been the most dominant team. They've had the most 20-point victories out of any team in college basketball all tournament long. They hadn't really had to fight to close out a game. They just been the best at getting a lead, extending it, and not letting the other team get too close to them. That's what had been their strength all year. They rode it to the Final Four, but we saw that weakness. They weren't really ready to close out the game. They couldn't inbound the ball. The defense from LJ Cryer and everybody over there on Houston really stepped up down the stretch. Now, that foul by Cooper Flagg, we can talk about it, was a little bit of a weak foul. Maybe it was over the back, but Houston was getting that rebound anyway. 1-and-1, down by 1 point there. He ends up making both, and that's a lead that they never ended up giving back. But it does make it a little bit more suspect. I still think the way that Houston was playing, they would have found a way to win that game. More time would have been off the clock, so it would have been a little bit scarier for them. But Duke had a shot there at the end. They couldn't quite get the ball inbounded, as it has been the whole time, and Proctor just had to put a shot up at the end. Wild shot, way off target. Duke falls. Now the question is about Cooper Flagg. What is he going to do? He, in all likelihood, is going to the NBA draft, but I've heard some rumblings, a little bit of murmurs, and sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. Maybe he doesn't want to go to the draft. I haven't seen anything out of him that makes me think he's not going to go to the NBA draft, that he's going to come back to college. But sometimes, especially with the fact that NIL is real, they've got a little bit of leverage now, right? The fact that a proposed settlement from literally 3 minutes ago, right before we went live on our show here, came out and said potentially athletes can get 50% of the athletic fund based on revenue and stuff. That is really huge news, and that's something to watch as we get further and further away from the college basketball season. But all eyes tonight on the national championship game. We have Houston looking for their first championship ever, taking on Florida, looking for their first since 2006, 2007, when they went back-to-back. It's going to be an excellent game. We'll talk about that and the women's championship coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, April 7th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the Final Four, one of the best Final Fours we have ever seen in the sport of college basketball, as we saw Houston with the biggest comeback in March Madness history in the Final Four, and another comeback where Auburn was unable to hold on as Florida advanced to take on those Houston Cougars in the final tonight. Just about 30 minutes away from tip-off, we're going to break that game down, as well as UConn Paige Bueckers taking care of business against South Carolina in a near 20-point defeat of the Gamecocks. That's coming up in a second. Before we do, though, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, April 7th. But like I was saying, we are going to get a little bit here into the world of college basketball again. We're going to start off with women's basketball because we do know what happened in that championship game, as the number 2 seed UConn Huskies have captured their 12th championship. Paige Bueckers gets her first national championship. They take care of business against South Carolina, who went on another run trying to get their third championship in the last 4 years, going for back-to-back championships. UConn wins 82-59 in this one behind Fudd. Fudd goes off. She ends up winning the player of the MVP of the Final Four, really. She goes off for she absolutely has a massive game for UConn. Paige Bueckers, of course, the big story. She ends her career, a storybook college career ending, starting off with the youngest player, the only freshman in the history of women's college basketball to win National Player of the Year, then dealing with injuries. 2022 had to sit out for the year. Dealing with injuries for most of 2023, was able to come back near the end and play in the tournament. But now in her final year, before she goes pro to play in the WNBA, Paige Bueckers wins a national championship for UConn. And that is really, really cool to see. Of course, it was a clash of the old versus the new as well. You had the old dynasty, the UConn Huskies, going up against the new dynasty, a budding dynasty in the South Carolina Gamecocks, a Gamecocks team that has won two of the last 4 now championships, was going for 2 straight championships, and has just been a menace to everybody in college basketball over the last couple of seasons. They open up as the favorites for next season as well. This is going to be a matchup we see again potentially next year, because these two squads are just stacked once again. But this was an amazing game. Of course, UConn had been just dominant all tournament long. You want to talk about a team that was going crazy. They take out not just UConn by 23 points, not just South Carolina by 23 points, but in the Final Four, they took care of business by nearly 40 points. They win by 34 points against UCLA, the number one overall seed coming into the tournament. They have been just they've just been absolutely amazing, right? And nothing was close for them all tournament long. You win by 14. That was your closest game against USC in the Elite Eight. USC without Juju Watkins. So you wonder how much that game could have been different if Juju Watkins was playing. Then they take care of business against Oklahoma in the Sweet 16, winning again by nearly 30 points, 59-82. In the round of 32, they do basically win by 40 points, 91-57, and then they win by 70 in the first round, 103-34. They were dominant. No one was close to them all tournament long, and they just continue to show why a team that has a good culture, a legendary coach, can continue to be this amazing program for basically forever, right? We don't know how long this is going to last, but appreciate greatness while it's here. The crown is going to be passing soon over to South Carolina. I just wonder how many more championships they can grab before the crown officially moves over, as honestly I had thought it already did. But regardless of that, congratulations to UConn. They claim another national championship, throw that on the belt to one of the greatest coaches in not just women's basketball history, but basketball history right there. Hall of Famer. Congratulations to them. But we do have another game tonight. The final game of the college basketball season, the March Madness Finals. We have Houston, a number one seed ranking coming from the bottom right quadrant of the bracket, and then Florida, bottom left side. The gauntlet side of the bracket was the Florida Gators. These two teams are set for a clash tonight. These two teams are, I won't say polar opposites of each other, because they're not quite polar opposites. You want to talk about opposites, that's Duke versus Houston, but it's going to be a very similar kind of game to that Duke-Houston game, I think. It's going to come down to which of these teams can impose their style of play. Duke was able to get that. Houston likes to play slow. They're a defensive-minded team. The less possessions you have, the less likely you are to run up the score on them. Now, Houston also has shooters. LJ Cryer has been amazing. Sharp has been amazing for them, especially in these last couple of games and stepping up big against Duke. They both hit a lot of huge threes. I'd like to look for them to have another huge game against a Gators defense that's very good, top 10, but is the weakest defense out of all of the teams that did end up making it to the Final Four. You want to talk about offense, though, that Gators offense is something else. And really the Gators' main strength heading into this game, favored in this one by 1.5, so basically a pick'em. But their main strength heading into this one is the fact that they have so much depth. They have size in the front court. They have a guy like Clayton who can make a shot from anywhere. You have guys coming off the bench. You have guys starting that just make impacts. And this team has been clutch. But one of the big weaknesses, as we talked about in the last segment with this Florida team, is the fact that they've started slow. And that is fine when you have an offense like Florida's that you know they're going to turn it on at some point, and they have, to their credit. But also at the same time, Florida cannot, I repeat, cannot fall behind by too many points against this Houston team, because that is how they get you. Both of these teams are amazing. Neither of these teams have lost when they get a 10-point lead at any point in the second half this season. Both of these teams have orchestrated amazing comebacks of double-digit points. Of course, we just saw Houston do it against a Duke team that, by the metrics, was the second-best team of all time in college basketball, only behind a 1999 Duke squad. This is a very, very tough team for both of them to play. Of course, the stakes here, Houston trying to get their program's first ever first ever national championship. Florida looking for their first since 2007 after they had gone back-to-back there. But both of these coaches are looking for their first one. It's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. This is more of a battle of wills in this one because both of these teams have very similar strengths offensively. They're both very good at shooting. They're both very good at rebounding. They put a lot of effort into it. But the big thing is going to come on the pace of play. Florida likes to play fast. Houston, likes to play slow. Whichever one of these guys can impose their pace of play is going to end up winning this game. I see this game being very similar, like I said, to that Duke-Houston game we saw the other night, but I like Florida a lot. I think they're going to have their shot makers. They, unlike Duke, have dealt with these close games. We talked about it. During not just this run, but throughout the season, this run, they took care of UConn by 2 points. They took care of Texas Tech at the last second. They had a comeback against Auburn in the Final Four. This is a team that is battle-tested, knows how to deal with it when they're behind, and a team that has shown they can overcome it. Duke had never done that. They struggled in those late-game, high-pressure situations. I don't think Florida's going to do that. So if Houston falls behind again, like they did against Duke, if they get dominated for 30 out of 40 minutes of this game, it's not going to be good. Both of these teams need to come out to a hot start. That is really going to be the key for this one. I can't wait to see how it goes because I'm super excited for this one. I think this is a chance to be one of the most magical finals we have seen in a very long time. Everything has led up to it. Really what has come out to be one of the best Final Fours, one of the best tournaments ever, could have a nice little bow on top of it if it ends in a legendary way. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Who do you think is going to win tonight in the finals between the Gators and the Cougars? What do you take out of UConn taking home yet another national title on the women's sides of things? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to the ice. You can see it on the whiteboard behind me. Alex Ovechkin, record-breaking goal. 895 for the greatest goal scorer of all time. We'll talk about what it means. Compare it to guys like LeBron James' accomplishments and much more. That's coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, April 7th. If you were just tuning in, we just went over everything you needed to know for the upcoming game between Houston and Florida tonight, as well as everything going on in college basketball over the weekend. In this segment, we turn our attention to the ice. I know, a little early in the show for hockey, but this is a special occasion. We have a new king of goal scoring. We'll talk about that in a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, April 7th. But like I was saying, we are going to get a little bit here into Alex Ovechkin, the new goal-scoring king. As Eric says, that's the key, right? He eats chicken parm before every game. You have to get that protein. Alex Ovechkin is an anomaly in every single possible way. There is nothing you can do to describe this man if you close your eyes and think, yes, that is a guy that is the greatest hockey goal scorer in the history of hockey, right? He is a guy with a dad bod. He's 39 years old, from Russia. He doesn't have the greatest diet. He not only eats chicken parm before every game, Eric, but he also, very famously, goes to McDonald's before just about every game, drinks a beer after every game. He is not the picture of an athlete, but it doesn't matter because he is the greatest at one thing, a record that many thought would never fall in the hockey community. Alex Ovechkin with goal 895 against the Islanders, a place that he has had a lot of success in his career, scores his first goal ever against Ilya Sorokin. I know that was a big deal heading into it. Wayne Gretzky, the great one, the best hockey player of all time in the building, to pass on the puck pass on the helmet of the new record, the new era of hockey. He handled it gracefully. Of course, that's something we like to see. One of the things and one of the main conversations that we've gotten out of this record, not just saying that Alex Ovechkin is amazing, of course, there's more conversation with it. Since hockey is not a sport that is the most popular to the general public, how do we compare this? How do you put this in layman's terms? How do you put this in basketball terms? Because you look at these numbers and you say 895, that's the best ever? Psh, that's not even 1,000, right? But it's a lot different. Basketball is the one that they're pointing to because these two sports are kind of married, right? They play at the same time. They have playoffs at the same time. They both do 82 games. These two sports are connected at the hip in American culture, really. They're kind of a big brother, little brother kind of thing, at least in my mind. Because they play at the same time on the calendar, so many of their teams share the same arena. Lots of stuff like that. But this has been compared to LeBron James, going for 50,000 points, breaking the record for most points scored, and I think that's an apt thing to compare it to. Of course, goals are how you win games, put points up on the board, but to put a little more perspective on it, you're only scoring max 3-4 goals a game. There have been people that have put up more than that. The most goals ever in the modern era in one game is 6. Someone put up 7 one time, but that was back in the 1920s when, again, doesn't really count as real hockey. Still, regardless of that, this is one of the most impressive things ever. Wayne Gretzky, still the greatest player of all time, but Alex Ovechkin breaks a record that many thought was unbreakable. Alex Ovechkin breaks a record like all these other scoring records that go around that people thought would stand the test of time, and it did. For 31 years, Wayne Gretzky stood at the top, and he still stands at the top for a lot of other things. You know, most points. He has nearly 2,000 assists in his career. No one's coming anywhere close to that. This is just a monumental occasion, right? And I'm glad it's getting as much coverage as it is. It's not quite going to get to the same level as the NBA because it's still number 4 in sports, right? There's no doubt about that. But this is a sport in hockey that desperately needed this coverage, desperately needed this chase. And the fact that he's doing it on a winning team is super cool to see, right? Alex Ovechkin has done it for 20 years. He's got the same longevity as LeBron James. He's got the same longevity as these guys that play forever. And he did it with one team, which is, again, really cool to see. Eric asks, with all the action, it's like baseball. It's like basketball, fast pace. like with the NFL contact, why is hockey so underappreciated in the U.S.? It's because it's this sport that is inaccessible, right? Anybody can go pick up a baseball. Anybody can go pick up a basketball. Anybody can go pick up a soccer ball. Anybody can go pick up a football and play with their friends. But hockey, first of all, you need ice. You can't just go play hockey anywhere, right? You need the ice. You need to buy the equipment. You need to buy the sticks, the gear, the pucks, all this stuff. It's very expensive. You have to have the right climate for it. You have to be, that's why all these northern countries have it. The northern U.S., big on hockey. You talk about Boston, you talk about Pennsylvania, you talk about Minnesota, you talk about Wisconsin, states like that, Michigan, all the way up in the north. They're big on hockey over there in the Northeast and up north. But once you get down to the South, Florida, you're not playing hockey in Florida. You're not playing hockey in Virginia, right? That's even too far south for hockey. It's a little too warm there. So it's just a combination of inaccessibility and price more than anything. A lot of eyes have come on it with the Four Nations Cup and stuff like that. And of course, this chase going on at the same time. It's very good for the sport. It's still not going to catch up anytime soon. But in the Big Four, it's really cool to see all the attention going on in hockey. And again, this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You're not going to see this record broken for a very long time. The next closest guy is 200 goals away in Sidney Crosby, and he's going to hang it up soon. The only other guy, again, we talk about this with the NBA, who could break that LeBron James record. It's very similar. Luka is the guy in the NBA that you look at who could break that points record. Probably not going to do it. Austin Matthews is the guy that might do it in the NHL. Over his career, his 20-year career, Alex Ovechkin has averaged 49 goals per game to get this far. He's done it in 1,497 games, the same amount of time it took Wayne Gretzky to get to his 894 goals. So it's not any more time. But what Austin Matthews has been able to do, again, very physical game, he's averaging 52 goals per game. He is the next guy up that could potentially do it, but he's going to have to do it for basically another 10 to 12 years and keep that up. It's incredibly hard to do. Again, like Eric says, it is a very, very physical sport. You get that physicality of full contact tackling in hockey. You get fights on the ice, right? It's going to be a record that's going to stand for a long time, and Ovi's still playing, right? He didn't end his career here. He's going to get to 900. He's got a couple games left in this season, about 5 or so to go. Then he's got a whole nother year left on his contract. Is he going to play that year? I don't see why not, especially with the way that this Capitals team is playing. I think he plays one more year, then he's done. Maybe he adds another one, but I think he broke the record he wanted to. He'll finish out his contract with the Caps, do a victory lap kind of thing, and he'll call it a career. So but when all is said and done, you could see Alex Ovechkin sitting somewhere around 950 goals. I'd like to see it again to 1,000. He'd have to play probably 2.5 more seasons for that, maybe 3 seasons, depending on how his body goes. He probably won't be able to do that. But still, I've seen crazier things happen, right? LeBron James is still playing at 42. Alex Ovechkin will be playing at age 40. Maybe he can buck the trend and keep going. But let's bask in the moment here. Take a step back and just say we witnessed history right from his office, right above the left face-off circle on a power play. It was about as perfect as you could possibly get. It was an excellent moment. They stopped it, had a beautiful ceremony. Wayne Gretzky came out, handed a puck over. We had the commissioner, Barry Bettman, come out, the owner of the Capitals, the whole team. The Islanders did a very good job of just taking in the moment, accepting at its history. Of course, sucks that it wasn't at home, but again, a very nice moment there. Before we end it, Eric says it's very physical. Before they switch out, they average about a minute and a half to 2 minutes. Yes, in hockey, that is a long shift. You're looking more around a minute per shift. You're looking guys who at most play 20 minutes per game. That or 25, 30 minutes per game is a lot. That's about half the game. You're looking at about 1 minute shifts, maybe a minute and a half. 2 minutes is a very long shift. Sometimes that happens, but it's a very physical game. You've basically got to learn a whole new style of movement. It's very impressive. I highly recommend everybody go watch hockey, but go take in this history. This is not something we're ever going to see again. any record in any sport, even if you're not a big follower of it, people can understand the gravitas of the moment that is Alex Ovechkin breaking the Great One's record. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. What do you think of this? What do you think about the sport of hockey? How is this going to help it grow? Is it going to help it grow? And is this something that's making you guys more interested in watching this sport? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to baseball. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. signed a massive 14-year, $500 million contract. We're going to talk about what that means for him, for the Blue Jays, and everyone else in baseball coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, April 7th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the history that was set on Sunday with Alex Ovechkin netting goal 895 of his career. In this segment, we turn our attention over to the world of baseball. The baseball season may have just gotten underway, but one of the biggest questions looming potentially for this offseason was just answered. Vlad Guerrero Jr., a superstar out of Toronto, has a massive contract befitting of a star as himself. 14 years, $500 million. We'll talk about that in a second, but before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, April 7th. But like I was saying, we are going to get a little bit here into the world of baseball. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. signed, of course, a 14-year, $500 million deal with the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays, a team that have kind of been stuck in this weird cycle of mediocrity for the last couple years. They had a breakout year with Vlad Guerrero Jr., where he was top 5 in MVP voting a couple years ago, had Bo Bichette have a massive breakout season. They made the playoffs. They've been basically stuck in no man's land ever since. They went out and they signed a whole bunch of guys. This contract is the largest in the history of the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays contracts, the biggest contracts previously was a 7-year, $131 million contract given to Jose Barrios. Pitcher still on the team. Now they're committing a lot of money to Vlad Guerrero Jr. Vlad Guerrero Jr. was one of those big stories heading into the season. Usually you don't see these guys hit market. It's been weird in the last couple years where stars have hit the market. We had Bryce Harper hit the market back in 2019. That is odd. A lot of this is because it's Scott Boras, that the agent for a lot of baseball players likes to have his guys hit the market and kind of just go find the highest bidder if he's not happy, and he's proven he's more than happy to do that. Again, Bryce Harper went and did that. We had Shohei Ohtani hit the open market a couple years ago, and this year, Juan Soto hit the open market. You don't often see it. Aaron Judge, people forget, hit the open market not too long ago as well before re-signing with the Yankees, right? This is a trend we're seeing in baseball more and more, and it seemed like we were going for another superstar in Vlad Guerrero Jr. to hit the market this offseason. Apparently, talks didn't go well between the Blue Jays and Vlad Guerrero Jr. over the offseason. Then when the season started, it came out, he said, I'm going to focus on baseball. We're going to figure out. There were rumors of him being traded before at last season's trade deadline. Ultimately, that never happened. I was an advocate for the Blue Jays to blow it up. Vlad Guerrero Jr. then turned it around and became an absolute menace with the bat at the plate at the second half of last season. He hasn't started off the greatest this year. You take a look at what Vlad Guerrero Jr. has been able to do this season, hitting .256, again, 10 games in, 4 RBIs, no home runs, right? He'll be able to turn it around right now. I have no doubt about that. He already has 2 hits in this one, 2 for 3 in the game going on right now after getting his massive new contract. But Vlad Guerrero Jr. getting him for just $35.7 million is kind of a steal. At 26 years old, you're saying, Vlad Guerrero Jr., you are here for the rest of your career. You're locking him up until he's 40, and maybe $35 million isn't necessarily going to be the greatest when he's 40 years old. But you have a lot worse contracts going on. Bobby Bonilla, little mini holiday for baseball players, for baseball fans, baseball people. The Mets are still paying Bobby Bonilla right now. He's been out of baseball for almost 25 years. It's been a very long time. Bobby Bonilla Day, he gets a little paycheck. It's a little fun thing. But there are a lot worse contracts out there in the MLB. Shohei Ohtani is going to get $680 million at the end of his contract. He's deferred it all to the end. So he's basically making $5 million a year right now. Or excuse me, $50 million a year. A little bit different there. And then he's going to make $600 million at the end of that contract when it's all said and done. This is not the worst. He's outside the top 10. He's obviously not at the level of Juan Soto, of Shohei Ohtani, of Aaron Judge, of Bobby Witt. But getting a guy locked up to be the face of your franchise, saying we are committing to you, we're committing to attempting to win here in Toronto, means a lot. Not just to Vlad, not just to the organization, but to the fans, right? It means that the fans can expect, hey, at a minimum, we are going to try to compete around a guy that we have put a lot of money into. And maybe 5 years, 10 years from now, they change their mind and they say, we're done, we're moving off of him. But at that point, he's going to be there regardless, right? There is not a world I see where, we were talking about this in the production meeting today. We were talking about, is this something that maybe they change their mind and they trade him away later? I can't see a world where they trade him away in the foreseeable future, right? This is a win now move. This is a, hey, we are committing to you, you're our guy move, win or lose. We are going down with the ship with Vlad Guerrero Jr., our franchise guy. I think every single franchise needs that. A guy that, rain or shine, fans know will be there. A guy that fans can confidently go out and buy his jersey. I mean, look at me. I've got the Giants hanging up on my wall behind me. I've got a Sterling Shepard jersey because I wasn't sure who to buy. I thought he would be a safe one. Gone a year later, right? It's a very important thing when you are putting a lot of money, when you're putting your emotional state into a game, right? When you're putting your emotions into a team, to know that there is a guy that you can root for. It helps drive ticket sales, helps drive fans, and it helps keep people engaged. It's huge that they went out and got them. I love the fact that they paid him and they got him at a relative discount. If he had hit the open market, you're talking $650 million. Getting him at $500 million over 14 years, I know it sounds like a lot, and it is. It sounds like a lot because it is. But in the grand scheme of things for baseball, without a salary cap, you're only paying this guy $35 million a year. You could have done so much worse. I really do like this move. I really do like this signing. And I think the Blue Jays, it won't really help them compete much more, but it's a sign that they're going to keep trying. And at least the organization and the fans know what direction they're going in now. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about Vlad Guerrero Jr. and getting this contract? What do you think this means for the Blue Jays, for the rest of the MLB? Is it going to help? Is it going to hurt? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to the world of the NBA. The NBA has about 5 games less than that for most teams, but the Western Conference playoffs is a mess right now. Seeds 8 to 4 are all jumbled up within a game and a half of each other. We'll talk about who is going to end up where, what their schedule looks like, and much more coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, April 7th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over everything you need to know about the Vlad Guerrero Jr. contract, 14 years, $500 million to stay in Toronto with the Blue Jays. In this segment, we turn our attention over to basketball. It is a jumble up in the standings for the Western Conference. We'll break it down for you. Who's going to end up where? Why these teams are all stuck together. A 2-game lead the Lakers have over the 8 seed. The 5 to 8 seed are all tied with the 4 seed, just half a game up on them. It is a mess with 3 or 4 games to go. We'll talk about all of that in a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, April 7th. But like I was saying, we are going to get a little bit here into the standings for the Western Conference. And I've done a lot of these standings breakdown. But as we get down to the home stretch, the season ends on Sunday. That's right. Season ends on Sunday for the NBA. We have to talk about what's going on in the Western Conference. To get it out of the way, the Eastern Conference is all set. All of the play-in teams have been locked up. All of the playoff teams have been locked up. It's just a matter of seeding between the 4 and the 6, the 8 and the 9 and the 10 at this point. So the Eastern Conference, we can kind of shove into a little box for a second. Now we get to focus on the West because the West is absolutely insane. As I said, the Lakers, who hold the 3 seed right now, 16 games back of the number 1 seed Thunder, are just 2 games up on the 8th seed Memphis Grizzlies, who are 18 games back at the Thunder. So let's talk a little bit about how we got here. Of course, it's been a big mess all season long. The Western Conference, we all knew, was going to be a bloodbath, but it being this close, the difference between a playoff and a play-in is so huge. You don't want to play that number 1 seed. A lot of teams are saying we don't care about seeding. The Nuggets kind of sat a couple guys, are preparing for playoffs a little bit. They've gone a little bit of a skid recently. That's going to be something to watch. The Lakers are trying to win as many games as possible. So we're going to start at the top here. The Lakers, the number 3 seed right now, up to a game and a half on the Nuggets and 2 games on everybody else. Their schedule looks really tough, right? They have 2 playoff teams, the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed, as well as a play-in team with the Mavericks, where there's going to be a little bit of extra motivation there going to Dallas, and then a date with the Blazers to end off the season. They only have 1 home game remaining on their schedule. They obviously are coming off of a massive win last time out against the Thunder. They get another matchup in Oklahoma City this time against the Thunder again up next. Then the Mavs in Dallas. That's going to be a massive game. Then you have the Rockets, the 2 seed in the West, at home before traveling up to Portland to take on the Blazers. That is not an easy schedule. Right now we take a look at where they are. We'll give them 2 wins there. Yeah, beat the Blazers, beat the Mavs. You can give them a win for the Rockets too, but that's not going to be an easy one. We'll say nice and conservative with 2 wins. That gives them 2 wins there. The 4 seed Nuggets, they've played 1 more game than everybody else. 17 and a half games back, a game and a half back of the Lakers, half a game up on the Clippers, the Warriors, the Timberwolves, and the Grizzlies. The Nuggets have to play a couple of these teams. There's going to be a big one, right? The Kings, they're a play-in team. They could fall out depending on what's going on with the Suns. We'll count it as a win for the Nuggets, despite them struggling. Then they get one of the biggest games. They have the Grizzlies at home. That one is going to be huge for seeding. The Grizzlies play the Nuggets in Denver, second to last game of the regular season, and then they take on the Rockets. The Rockets, again, the 2 seed in the West right now, a very young team playing for pride. That's a very tough schedule. We'll give them 1.5 wins. Again, probably not quite enough when you're taking a look at some of these other schedules. The Clippers have the Spurs and the Rockets at home, then the Kings and the Warriors on the road. The Warriors, that is a huge game to close out the season. That one could be the difference between the 3 seed and the 7th seed, in all honesty, if we take a look at what it is. The Warriors, tied with them, right behind them, have the Suns, the Spurs, the Blazers, and the Clippers. So the Warriors, who have been the hottest team in basketball, coming off of a rough loss where Steph Curry shot 1 of 10 from the field, made 1 basket, of course, a 3-pointer. They have the easiest schedule on this list. They only have to play 1 playoff team in the Clippers, but that one is a massive, massive game. The Minnesota Timberwolves, who currently hold the 7 seed, right on that line, play the Bucks without Dame. That's an interesting one. They could probably win that one. The Grizzlies, a massive, massive game between them. Then the Nets and the Jazz. So they have a couple tough games, 2 playoff teams that they have to play in Minnesota. But Minnesota, again, has been very hot. I think they probably take 1, if not both, especially since Memphis fired their head coach at the worst possible time. Then Memphis, the final one here. Memphis goes out there. They have the Hornets. That's probably an easy win. Then the Timberwolves. That's a massive one for seeding. The Nuggets, a massive one for seeding. And then the Mavericks. Again, another massive one for seeding. The Memphis Grizzlies have the toughest schedule remaining here out of everybody in this jumble, right? They have to play the Wolves and the Nuggets. The Wolves at home, and then the Mavericks. That's 3 playoff teams that they're going to have to play. That is the most out of anybody. They and the Lakers both have to play 3 playoff teams with a couple of really big matchups later on. Of course, the big one, Memphis versus Minnesota. It's third to last game before the season for both of them. You also have Memphis versus the Nuggets. That is another massive game, second to last game. Clippers versus Golden State. That one could very well determine the 3 seed or the 6 seed. And then the Rockets play a bunch of these teams as well. They're still basically clinched there, but this is going to be a very, very interesting end of the season, and it's something you have to keep your eyes on. Again, the season ends on Sunday. Sunday. Keep your eyes open because it's going to matter a lot when we head into the playoffs. The NBA playoffs, of course, a whole nother level of intense, something you need to see, just like every other playoffs. But I can't wait to see what's happening in the West. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Where do you think each seed is going to end up? I've got the Lakers at 3. I actually got the Clippers I've got the Warriors going 4, Clippers going 5, the Nuggets falling to 6, and then Minnesota and Memphis staying at 7, 8. I'd love to hear your thoughts, though. What do you think? And thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. We will be back tomorrow talking about all the biggest pieces of news from around the world of sports, including reacting to a champion of March Madness. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn ain't that great.